2019, I competed in the natural Canadian Pro qualifier, which I actually won, which basically gave me the Mr. Natural Canada is what I got. I was really like loving that bodybuilding side of things. And I got to a point, I built myself up naturally to a point where nobody believed me. At that point, I was just like, well, I was building my social media. Tons of people were reaching out. Everybody was telling me I should do another show. My first experience with weightlifting, like my dad used to make me do like a routine in the morning. Every single morning, I'd have to run up the stairs. I do push-ups. We would do like handstands together and stuff like that. So just like he was always kind of like, you know, he's crazy, but like it's hilarious because I really liked it, right? I really liked it. So we would do kind of our routine together in the morning just at home. So that's where it really like started, I think. When it comes to relieving stress, like for me, there's no better way than going in and, you know, lifting some stuff in the gym and just like blowing off that steam and then being able to come back and just like, you know, hit the ground running when it comes to focus and relieving the stress. Anybody can slap a diet on someone and say, hey, just follow this. But ultimately, if it's something that provides a whole bunch of resistance in actually following that diet, well, then long term, they're going to fall off, right? And we don't even like to call our plans like a diet. We call them plans because plans are something that people can stick to no matter where they go, no matter what they're doing, right? And if you can stick to it no matter where you're going and you don't feel hungry, tired, sleep better, you're more energetic, it's like, why would you ever fall off of this, right? So that creates sustainability, and that's what we're looking to do.
This for me is really interesting because I'm someone that, you know, is passionate about fitness. I've been in the gym for a while. I'm also not necessarily, I wouldn't class myself as a CEO. I'm still a founder. I don't have like a massive team. But yeah, nonetheless, something that I want to dive into. And where I wanted to start, I guess, Mike, is just to understand a bit more about yourself because it is quite interesting to hear you as an engineer by trade. You kind of came in, did your degree in university, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I did a civil engineering degree at a university, BCIT, actually, Technical Institute. So I was there for 4 years. I actually took engineering first at a place called Simon Fraser University, and then I realized that all they had was like electrical or robotic engineering, and it just wasn't for me. So I transferred. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult that. I did a bit of electrical engineering, and if or not, just got me confused from the get go.
Yeah. For me, I was just like, when I was a kid, I was like always building different like bike trails in the forest and stuff. And that's actually why I got into engineering, because I was just like, well, everybody was always coming to me and asking me like, okay, well, this thing fell down. How do we build it better for like these drops and jumps and things that we were building, wall rides and everything. And then I actually like had a whole bunch of people that wanted to build these bike trails, which is pretty funny. And they all were like, Mike, well, how do we build it? And I was just like, I was 14 years old. I had really no idea how to do it, but for some reason I knew how to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
like just intuitively, I just understood how to like structurally build things in just from like tree stumps and you know, wood that we cut down in the forest, and I was building those. So then when I like really thought about it in grade like 11 and 12, I was just like, well, what is my like passion? What should I do? What can I potentially excel in? And I was like, well, I'm really good at math and science, but then also I have this passion when I was a kid of like trail building and building things and actually doing them well. So I was like, well, maybe I'll go into engineering and do like the project management side and all that. And that's why I got into it, which is kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And the bike trails you were building, so you were quite active as a kid, would you say? And when we talk about biking and wall rides, this is to me, I understand it as BMXing. It's like you're going and doing stunts.
So
Yeah,
I grew up in like Vancouver, British Columbia. So we have
yeah,
tons of different mountains. And in the mountains, there's like very, very lush forests with these, you know, evergreen trees. And yeah, we would cut them down and we would hike all the way up the mountain. Actually, quite honestly, we lived near the top of the mountain. So we would hike probably an hour or so up, bring all of our tools. And I was like 14 years old with our
mm,
bikes, these massive bikes. They're like 50 pounds. And my best friend, Mark, him and I like had this like passion for mountain biking. We thought we were going to be pro mountain bikers. We like would film everything. We have our GoPro cameras and everything. It was hilarious. We'd build like, you know, we'd build our trails and then we'd film them and we'd put them up on I don't even know if it was YouTube at that time. It was just like some other platform that we were uploading them to, like Vine or something like that, like these short clips, thinking that we were going to go pro. And we're like, our goal was to get sponsored and do all of that. But yeah, it's really like a mountain bike, the dual suspension bikes that we used and use that to like do these jumps and some of the drops that we were doing were like 6-7 feet tall. Yeah, and then the wall rides we would get a whole bunch of speed going down the hill, and then you'd have this jump to kind of like an angled piece of plywood or even just slats of the wood that we cut down from the tree, and you'd ride it with the bike along the wall and then drop off the end of it, and it would actually like rotate you out at the end so that you could do this drop.
As well.
Yeah, we would build it all. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, not. I mean, I grew up and I was into skateboarding, right? And I wanted to also do some tricks. I don't know if I had the aspirations to do the whole like GoPro. I don't think I knew. I kind of knew I didn't have the skills at that point because I was 18 when I started, so I was a bit late to the party. But do you feel that you were quite ambitious as a kid? Because you're talking about recording yourself on GoPros. Do you still have this footage? One, and two is like, do you feel that was something that you just had innately? Because not every kid goes out and starts thinking they're going to become a pro mountain biker.
For me, yeah, we number one, I think I still have that footage somewhere, and I think it's on my dad's computer, like at back home. And my dad keeps everything, so I'm sure he still has this computer that we have it on. But it was like if you saw it now, it would probably be so pixelized just because of the camera quality. Like that was like the best camera quality in the world when we were doing it, and that was like 20 years ago at this point, right? So you can, I mean, the technology's come so far, and the editing skills and things were horrible. We put some like, I don't know, like Limp Bizkit music over top of it, or like some sort of like, I don't know, like Fall Out Boy or something music behind it, and we thought we were like the coolest people ever. But yeah, I mean, ever since I was a kid, like really, like I had a lot of passion for different sports that I was doing, and I always tried to take it kind of to the max. Like even before these trails, like my dad would just build me these little jumps out in the front yard, and although they were only like a 2x4 and a piece of plywood to ramp it, we built a couple of them. And then we were using our bikes that were just for kids, like when I was 8 years old, I think, or 8 or 10 years old, and it was just like a smaller bike. And my friend Mark and I we were trying to just like keep expanding them, keep getting them bigger and bigger to just do the jump to the other side. And we would do that right on the road, no helmets, nothing. I bashed my head a whole bunch of times doing it, and didn't stop me. I just kept doing it. But yeah, I think like ambition wise, like it's always been something just to like push myself, and I don't know why that is, but I'm just very competitive with myself. And it's not like I'm competitive. I am competitive against other people, but I really just want to try to like see what the limitation I can push my personal mind, body, and everything that I do in my life to the limit of what I can kind of handle. And that's exciting to me, really.
Yeah. I know you said do you have any idea as to where that might come from?
It's a good question. I mean, I remember my dad, like just growing up, him always doing something like puttering around in the house. Like even if he wasn't working, cleaning the house, he was building violins in the basement. He showed me how to do that. And just like, he kind of pushed me to just always be active. And it was never like, hey, let's sit on the couch and chill. It was like, hey, you want to go throw the ball? Hey, you want to go play hockey outside? Or hey, right? Like, it's like he was just always like on me to do something. And it kind of just get that, hey, yeah, like I do want to do this. And it was just like more exciting for me to kind of just like learn new things and do other things rather than just sit on the couch and watch TV or something like that. So he was super motivated. He owned his own business, very, very successful when it comes to that side of things. So I think just like watching him and just getting that kind of knowledge from being a kid, and just surrounding myself with him all the time, it definitely like brushed off on me. And not saying that that's the only reason why I got or why I was like more ambitious, but and then also like I think that he never really gave me things, if that makes sense. So although he was very successful, he never really gave me any handouts or like, he'd make me kind of figure out everything for myself. So he's an amazing role model for sure. And I think that probably was one of the biggest like development markers that I can remember, at least, that helped me like create this ambitious kind of lifestyle that I've always lived.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, building violins is not something that I've heard like every dad do. That's quite skilled.
And
Yeah.
he never even took any like lessons to do it either. He just researched it all Stradivari. I remember him like, yeah, we when I went down my first experience actually, and this is like a crazy thing that kind of translated into some health just revelations that I had was he took me downstairs and he's just like, we're gonna what's the word for it, chisel, or no, not chisel, but it's a plane, like a plane, those planes that you like push against the wood and they plane it out. we're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna we're gonna plane out this like front of the violin today. And he's just like, but how we have to do it is we have to understand where like the resonance is coming from. So he would put this is crazy. He put all of these little black beads, little tiny black beads on top of the actual violin, the top of the violin before it was assembled, of course. And he put these black beads on it, and he ran a frequency, different frequencies through the actual material of the wood, and the beads, they would align themselves into different patterns. And he had this like, this basically this blueprint from Stradivari where all of the different patterns mean like a different thing, right? And so these beads would align themselves, and he's like, okay, well, this is an eighth to kind of thick in this specific area. So he'd plane it out, and then he'd do it again until it actually the pattern actually resembled the same pattern that was mapped out by Stradivari. So I was just like, this is the craziest thing ever. And for some reason, that's like something that's stuck in my mind for so long. And then when we deal with like other things in like in health, we see how like the response of the body is to even different like frequencies that we're emitting, outside of us, and things that we're ingesting as far as like sound frequency and how they actually affect the body in this, at a cellular level. Even like the water and stuff like that you're putting into your body, it can have a frequency within it and actually change the body's frequency because of it, because the water holds information.
Interesting. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard about that as well. And I guess it's nice to hear that you're relating it to that experience that you had with your dad, with him putting the beats onto the violin. I didn't even know that. That's something that's new to me, right? And now it makes sense, like looking at your interest in engineering, your natural alignment with maths as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you kind of got a lot of this from your dad, who's probably throughout the years getting you to do these tasks and these odd jobs that didn't make sense at the time, but then over time you kind of that's morphed into something you've been able to leverage, not just in engineering but in your health.
Yeah, for
Sounds
sure. Yeah, it's all about like just understanding the problem and taking that problem to a solution, and that's kind of like the fundamentals of really anything in life, in my opinion. But I've definitely implemented that into, and why I was so good at engineering and math and all of the school behind it was because of just the simple fact that I'm a good problem solver, I think. And I really took that and translated it into my body blueprint business, where I'm doing the same thing, but just on a health and fitness perspective, on a cellular level. Like, okay, well, what are the symptoms that these individuals are feeling, and what are they struggling with, and like how can we implement things into their day-to-day routine that actually treats, and I don't want to say treat, but it actually assesses like the root cause of the problem, rather than just trying to create a band-aid solution that it masks it for a little bit of time, but then it comes back. It's like, if we can actually hone into like what the true problem is within the body, and why it's not functioning the proper way, it's like then we can take that and we can create a solution that lasts forever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I can see that you're kind of taking this approach that is deeper than just the surface level. It's not just about lifting weights; it's looking at how, like you said, the body's reacting, and all bodies are different, right? So having that perspective on one point of view is frequency, but there's probably some others that you'd be sharing with me, I'm sure, off the back of that.
For sure.
See how it links and helps you to put together a program that really is like something different, something unique. But just wind it back a second. So you successfully graduated university. It's something I haven't done. Right, I tried twice, failed. couldn't part with it. You did that. You went into engineering. What was the experience after university? You graduated. Did you go into a role where you?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, oh, you're reconnecting.
Oops. Hello.
Yeah, I got you. You're back
Yeah.
now. Okay, so I went through so I went to SFU first, transferred to BCIT once I realized they didn't have the type of engineering that I was interested in. And I should have obviously looked into the SFU thing more, but my parents were just kind of pressuring me to do whatever it was, and all my friends were going to this university. So I was like, well, I want to be with my friends. So I went there, and then realized I was like, well, it doesn't really have like the type of engineering that I wanted to do specifically. Transferred to BCIT. I did like a 2-year diploma program first, which had an exit. So I exited after 2 years, and I actually worked for a company, marine contractor, which was pretty interesting to me because I was like, oh, it's the coolest thing ever. I get to be on the water all of the time, building like ferry terminals, container ports, get to see all of like the boats and ships kind of going around, even get to go on like a barge and things like that on the water. So it was like kind of like a cool experience for a kid, just like something new that I always loved the water, being around the river and the sea and everything like that. So I went into that company with the intention to go back to school after 1 year. I ended up staying with that company for 2 years. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to school at that point because, you start making some money with a company, you start doing these things, and then it's just like your lifestyle is a little bit more comfortable rather than being like this broke student that had nothing. So it was really like one of those things. And then ultimately I was just like, well, I started this and I'm not a type of person to just not finish what I started. So I told my company, I'm like, hey, look, guys, like I love you guys, but I really want to just finish this for myself. And it's not even like that because I'm going to excel with this more in this business that we're in. But it's just something that I told myself that I was going to do, and I really want to do it. So they fully supported me. They actually paid for my school to go back, which was very nice of them. Uh, and they said, well, we'll pay for your school, but you have to come back here and work for us for at least 4 years. Otherwise, you got to pay back the school kind of like commitment that we gave you. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. And they made some requirements where I had to hit at least 75% on my grades in order to get the payment, which was pretty easy to do. But anyways, so I went back for 2 years. And then immediately after that, I returned to the company and they sent me out of town almost immediately. So I went out of town. I worked in a very small town called Prince Rupert to do like a container port expansion. And I was there for about, I would say a year and 8 months that I was working out of town. I had a girlfriend, which didn't work out obviously, just because of the long distance and like the everything that I was doing. I was working like 15, 16 hours a day for that company, sometimes doing night shifts, sometimes doing split shifts because the way that it works is in Prince Rupert, there's actually a 24-foot tide. So the tide like goes very, very erratic comparatively to most places that maybe it's only 10, or in Florida where I'm living right now, the tide only rises and drops like 4 feet total. So 24 feet is like a tremendous amount of like swing that you have. So in order to do the work that is like low tide work, you have to hit it at the very particular times, and those times could be in the middle of the night. So that's why like we were working, like sometimes I would work 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then they're like, oh yeah, just go back and sleep and then come back at like 9 p.m. It's like, well that never works, right? Like it never works. You don't sleep at all, so you're pretty much just staying there the whole time, because what else are you going to do when you're in an isolated town? So I was just working like a lot. And yeah, and as far as like why I do you want me to talk about why I transitioned into fitness and what kind of brought me there?
Yeah, yeah, yes, because it sounds like you're putting a lot of work in, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you're enjoying it to some degree.
I was
Is it?
enjoying it. It was
Yeah.
fun for me, don't get me wrong, but like if we wanted to backtrack into when I returned to school, I think that was like kind of like the biggest transitionary period, like cuz I went from having, a little bit of money coming back to school, cuz I was still working out of town and they were paying me quite a bit of money when I was like 21, 22 years old before I returned to BCIT. So I returned to BCIT, and quite honestly, it was like a very difficult time because I had been out of school for 2 years. So to jump back into third year university after being gone for 2 years, your brain just doesn't function the same way. So
Mm.
it was a lot of work, and then also like I didn't really have any money. So at that time, that's when I kind of discovered the gym, and I was just like, of course, I had been working out for quite some time with like athletics and different things, but like I didn't have those sports anymore, and I was just like, well, I got to do something. And all my friends at lunchtime, they were going to the bar and the casino and like spending money. And like I said, my dad wasn't giving me anything, so I just kind of had like whatever savings I had and like no real money coming in. Of course, I like developed some businesses on the side there, installing like headlights for people. It was a funny story, but I'll go past that. But I was making money on the side, just doing like these little $100 kind of installations of like headlights and stuff because I understood how to do that. So that was paying my gas
What
money and stuff.
headlights into cars?
Yeah, yeah. So I had this like my dad, because he owned this business, he had this like really good discount with a company called Lordco, and I installed them in my truck, and everybody was like, "Oh wow, these." This is before like they had those HID headlights, those really bright white headlights in all of the
Mm.
cars. They had the old school like yellow headlights
Yeah.
that didn't look very nice, right? So I had these cool looking headlights, and everybody at my school was always like, "Oh, I want some of those," and I was like, "Well, I can get them for you. It's like whatever, $300." And then I would pay like $150, install them for them, and make either 150 or $100 each time that I did that. And it was kind of like a everybody that just started telling people about it, and then I was just doing this on the side at my house after school hours. But during lunchtime, when everybody was going to like the casino, the bar, whatever it was, I was like, first of all, that food kind of makes me feel like crap anyways, and I don't have any money to spend on this, so I'm just gonna go to the gym because the gym pass there was free and it was included with BCIT. So I started to go there every single day and just kind of like make that as my excuse to why I wasn't going there. And
Would you
I
go by yourself or would you go with friends?
I would mostly go by myself. There was one of my buddies, Pat, that was there. He started coming with me after a little while, but at the start it was just myself. And
Hmm.
then it turned into like a couple guys coming with me because they saw like what I was doing, and they saw how I looked, and like I was, for me it was like I went there, and it started to become almost like a form of like meditation, and like just really like clearing my mind. And because I'm like super high functioning when it comes to like the athletic side, if I don't exhaust myself physically throughout the day, I found that it was a lot harder for me to sit down and focus on the work that I
Mm.
had to do. Right. So I think that like it was more not for the getting big and doing a bodybuilding show and all of these things. It was more just like a sense of like mental clarity that I got from the gym, which that positive kind of feeling translated to me wanting to do it more and more, and then just really falling in love with it. So that was kind of like how I first got really passionate about everything as far as like lifting weights. Before that, I had some other things that occurred in my life that really made me passionate about like the nutrition side, which we can go into as well. But yeah, that was like when I really fell in love with lifting weights and the feeling that I got from it. And then that's really what led into my first show, because my friend Gord, he was a trainer. He was like 8 years older than me, and he saw me one night with my shirt off just because we were like drinking, and it was like 4 a.m. and whatever. We were doing stupid stuff that boys do when they're in university and drinking and all that stuff. And I had my shirt off for some reason, and he's just like, he came up to me, he's like, Mikey, he's like, you should really do a show. And I'm like, Gord, man, that's like not me at all. I was like this very, very introverted person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I say that with my shirt off at this point, but I had been drinking, right? But I like really didn't care to like do like a
Hmm.
show and be like the person in the spotlight in front of everybody. And he's like, no, man. He's like, you're just like gifted when it comes to this. And he's like, what are you eating right now? And I told him what I was eating. He's like, dude, if you're eating that and you're looking like this, he's just like, there's so much potential that I could do with you. So that's really when I actually told him no. But then he's like, look, we're doing it January 1st. We're doing it. We're starting January 1st, no matter what. And it's funny because it's like a New Year's resolution, which I don't really believe in, quite honestly. And it wasn't intentionally a New Year's resolution for me, but it was just the date that he set. And then once it came to that, he messaged me on that day, and he's like, "You ready to?" He's like, "Let's go." And I'm like, "All right, I guess let's do it," because I'm open for a new opportunity. So I
Yeah.
went in and started working with him, training him, and he basically mentored me for like everything when it comes to the weightlifting side and posing and all of the things that
And
you
who
know
was he? What was his background that he mentored you? Was he a bodybuilder at this point, or?
Yeah, he was a personal trainer, but he had a very good eye when it came to like the poses and just like the art of bodybuilding, I would say.
Hmm.
It takes a fine eye like to understand the symmetry of the body, the way that you should be posing and everything like that. So he was really good at that. But his passion was always just in health. He just trained a whole bunch of people, just a really good guy. So yeah, he that was kind of his background.
And that got you into starting to do the bodybuilding competitions. When was your first? How old were you when you did your first competition?
I was 23 years old. 23.
23. Wow. Yeah, that's young, man.
Yeah, 23. And I did it there was a couple different organizations at the time in Canada. And the one that aligned with like the exact timeline that we were looking to do was a federation called UBFF, which I had no idea what that even meant. And it's like nobody really even knows what it means in North America anymore. It's more of like a UK, Australia thing where I mean, maybe you know about it, but there's a ton of people in Australia that are big into this. But anyways, I turned pro in the WBFF on my first show, which it sounds impressive, but quite honestly, like you can walk into your first show and turn pro if you win it, of course, as an overall kind of win that you get, which is
And
pretty cool.
did you win it? So this is your first show. You went and entered it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Being naturally someone who doesn't like the spotlight, what was the feeling walking out on stage for the first time? Was it something that you felt like you was naturally just,
No,
oh yeah,
it was a complete
I'm
mess,
meant to
man.
be here?
It was a
Oh,
mess. I was like, I still thought like, what am I doing here? Like, this is like, it's just such a weird like thing that I'm doing. I don't even know like how to pose. Really, I don't feel confident up here. Even though I'm like honestly, like when I looked in the mirror though, it was like quite impressive. I was like, I can't believe that my body looks like this, right? Like,
mm,
it's pretty cool. Obviously, like I didn't feel very good. Like my energy levels were low when I was doing it just because I was so depleted in all of the things. And that's kind of like another reason why I got out of it ultimately was because, after I did this show, I turned pro. I did compete at the Worlds for that federation, which was in Las Vegas, and I didn't do great in it because I was just a young kid versus people that are 35. They just have a lot more muscle density, also taking different
supplements.
special supplements and stuff. So I never took any of those things because I just wanted to do it naturally, because for me it wasn't about getting big and doing all of these shows and stuff like that. It was really about the mental clarity that came from it. And then of course, like I took a couple of years off after that just because I just didn't feel good doing it, quite honestly. But then for some reason that itch came back, and I was really like loving that bodybuilding side of things. And I got to a point, I built myself up naturally to a point where nobody believed me. Nobody believed me. But I was just so like in tune with my body and everything that I was doing, and understand the fundamentals of lifting, because I never shortcutted anything. I just really did it the right way, and brought myself to that kind of like higher understanding of like the fundamentals of fitness to get to that next level where people wouldn't be able to achieve it unless they took steroids and other different components into their body. But I was able to achieve it naturally. So then at that point I was just like, well, I was building my social media, tons of people were reaching out, everybody was telling me I should do another show, and then it got in my mind, and then I did another one. I won. It was called the Popeyes Fall Classic, and not the Popeyes chicken. It was like Popeyes in Canada is like a supplement
Oh,
brand,
okay.
supplement store actually. So, anyways, I did that one. Won both overalls in men's physique and classic physique. And then I was just like, okay, after this, I was like, I'm gonna go pro. I'm gonna turn pro in this other organization, which is the IFBB, which is like the more sought after one, I think, in North America. But yeah, and then I did another show in 2018. I won, but I didn't win the pro card. So you can win your class and then not win the pro card. And then 2019, I competed in the natural Canadian pro qualifier, which I actually won, which basically gave me the pro card in the IFBB through the natural stream. So it's all tested and everything. And then also it was where I got the Mr. Canada of 2019 for the natural Mr. Natural Canada is what I got.
How long had you been bodybuilding from that point? So from your first competition, or when you first started, actually, to
It
that
was
2016,
it was about 6 years.
6 years.
Six
And was
years of
that?
taking it very seriously.
I was going to say, yeah. So this is diet consistent with the training, with sleep, with everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I say like diet and consistent and sleep and stuff like that, but quite honestly, like I dedicated myself as much as I understood. I think like now, like the fundamentals that I've kind of developed are significantly better, and that's really like that was the revelation that I had in 2019 after I won my pro card, because I had tons of people reaching out to me to coach them to get on stage and get into like this incredible shape because they saw what I had done. But then like morally, I thought back to like well, why did I get into health and fitness to begin with? And it was like, really, it had nothing to do with this. It really had everything to do with just how my body felt, and the energy levels, the clarity, the all of the really good things that come from actually understanding sleep, diet, nutrition, all of these things. But none of that stuff translated to getting into the best shape, like where you're depleted and, energetically low and all of those things to get on stage. So then I was just like, I really don't want to coach people to do that, because morally it's just not what I'm about. I would rather coach people to be able to change their health for the rest of their life and get into extremely good shape, but still feel incredibly good at the same time. And that's when I took that step back, and I was like, I really got to change kind of like who I'm speaking to about this, I think, because the people that are looking for competition, they're just not the people that, have that alignment, and really like, I can't change their lives as much, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Do you think that because correct me if I'm wrong, but you started to go to the gym when you came back from your stint working, and you struggled a bit with getting back into the flow of things because you'd been working, now you're back into the textbooks and the kind of uni way of life. And you've got also this pressure of like, you've got to get 75%, you got to, hit these targets. Was that like what your friends are out in? Was that something that was a part of the catalyst to you starting to just go to the gym because you had this extra pressure of like, hey, these guys are paying for my thing if I don't hit this target, or was you doing it beforehand?
Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
had been like, my first experience with weightlifting, like my dad used to make me do like a routine in the morning. Every single morning I'd have to run up the stairs. I do push-ups. We would do like handstands together and stuff like that. So just like, he was always kind of like, he's crazy, but like, it's hilarious because I really liked it, right? I really liked it. So we would do kind of our routine together in the morning just at home. So that's where it really like started, I think. And then when I was 14 in grade 9, when I first got into high school, there was a fitness class, and it was an elective, and I signed up for it. And there was my teacher there. He loved me so much, and he really like helped me kind of like understand weightlifting and that side of things, which gave me the fundamentals, at least some of the fundamentals. But yeah, it was really like, I think the thing that I knew was that, number one, I just didn't have money to spend, so I went into the gym, and then it was kind of like a rediscovering of like the feeling that I got from it, which translated into, well, I'm going to do this every day because I really love that feeling that I get from it, that clarity, and I can actually work better than I did before, with much more productivity. I found where, because my mind was actually focused on that rather than feeling like my body had all of this energy in it, and kind of like sidetracking my focus, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I know that myself included. I'm sure a lot of people would agree that whenever you work out, you do feel that sense of clarity. Also, you feel like you can handle bigger stress. I
Yeah,
was in the sauna today, and this guy was saying, "Yeah, that's why I can deal with the stress that I've got is because I work out and I go to the gym all the time."
a
Whereas
hundred
others,
percent.
yeah, I don't know if it's the same, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There was a lot of pressure on me. Although I'm pretty good under pressure, but like
Mm.
when it comes to relieving stress, like for me, there's no better way than going in and lifting some stuff in the gym and just like blowing off that steam, and then being able to come back and just like hit the ground running when it comes to focus and relieving the stress.
Yeah, so now you finish your pro card, you've got the accolades, you've got people queuing at the door saying, hey, train me, I want to be the next Mr. Canada, I want to do some bodybuilding. You don't go that route because of it sounds like what really drove you is that mental clarity, the health benefits of working out, the good feelings that you got as a young kid training with your dad, who seems like a proper legend.
Yes.
Definitely. And then kind of back into the routine that you rediscovered at university, and you wanted to give that feeling. And that's what seems like to be the driver. But why choose CEOs? What what started the body blueprint now? So
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That's
found that.
well, I think number one was like, I tried to do that, once I won my pro card, I tried to just be like, hey, look, like we're going to focus on this. I don't really want to do this show prep. And a lot of the demographic that were coming to me were between the ages of like, I don't know, 18 to let's just say 32. And those people just didn't really have the same alignment, right? Because most of the people in that age group, they don't understand that they feel like crap, right?
No, they don't.
They don't get hungover. They don't feel like if they sleep the wrong way, they just bounce back. It's fine. So they don't really have that understanding. And most of these people, like, they're also not focused on work and productivity. So I guess the need just doesn't feel there for them to invest in something like this. So it was really when the pandemic happened, actually, I moved to Florida. So from Canada to Florida, and I was working with a company called Orion, which was a subcontractor of NASA. And we were building a bridge project there. And in Canada, it wasn't as noticeable. But when I went to the United States, I just noticed that a lot of the individuals that I was working with, even on like the kind of director level or that area, when I spoke to them, I was just like, man, these guys must be like 70 years old. And I come to find out that they're only 55 years old. Right. And I'm just like, wow. And then the people that I was working with, I thought that they were all like 50 years old, and most of them were actually younger than me, but they had just like left their health. It just slipped to the wayside as they focused on these careers, and the stress that they had from these careers, because it is a high paced, demanding kind of a role to be a project manager, or even like, manage millions of dollars of money on a day-to-day basis. So these people, they were so stressed out over these things, and it's like I never really got stressed out. And then I was just like, wow, well, these individuals, like, they're working so hard. They're very, very smart people. They're masters at execution. And what's going to happen if they look like they're 70 years old when they're 55? What's going to happen when they retire? They do all of this hard work, and then they can't even really enjoy all of that hard work that comes from it. So it just came to that revelation for me that I was like, well, these are the type of people that I should actually be helping, because I can make the most difference in their lives now, but also in the later years of their life, really like give them an increased quality of life when they retire, or even just right now, right? Like if anybody can come into my program and we just adjust a few minor things when it comes to the nutritional kind of like recommendations, just getting all of the body working the way that it's supposed to, well, that translates to better energy, better sleep, less stress. So we just from adjusting a couple things, I can get people working even more productive, have less stress, have less, ailments that come from the body because of all of those things right away. And it's like that can translate into maybe it's years more of work that they can do productively. Maybe it's like, preventing kind of like a stress breakdown or something like that, which prevents them from working. Maybe it's just, hey, I get to retire and my body still is actually functioning the way that it should. So I can spend time with the kids, spend time with the grandkids, and actually enjoy this, this life that I've spent so long building, right? And so from there, I was sort of toying with the idea of working with people between the ages of like 35 to 50. But then I was just like, well, why don't I start from the top down? Because it's the same way with like how everything works in business, right? It's like the leaders go first. And my kind of vision for this is like, it's something that I want to influence the entire world with, because it truly changed my life. So if I can start with the highest level people, the executives, the CEOs, the business leaders, well, then if they start taking their health and fitness seriously and they feel the difference, and the people that look up to them in the business can see those people excelling, and they live this kind of like lifestyle that they can do both, right? And they're the highest level of achievers, so people follow the leader typically, right? And then that's why I was just like, well, those are the people that I need to start with. And that's what created Body Blueprint, and why I started working with the CEOs, the executives, the business leaders.
Oh, okay, cool. So it's like part of the vision, right? So it's that you want to have a greater effect than just one person. And you know that the leaders of companies, and I get it, they set the pace, they set the tone for majority of things within the business. Why not health and fitness? And if you can affect them, they've got the biggest budget as well. And that might be invested down to the employees as well.
Yeah.
taking like the Japanese approach, I've always fascinated with their culture, and that in the mornings what I've heard is that they do 10 minutes of kind of qigong or whatever it may be, but movement, and you'd never get that in, I don't know about the US, but the UK for sure not. That's never happened, and it would be great if it was something that did happen. Tell me about your first client then. How did it come about? So you've got this vision, you got this goal, you have set a direction. How do you make it happen?
It was pretty interesting because I was going through this transitionary period. I was still working at my 9 to 5 job, although I was probably working 16 hours a day with this job, 6 days a week, and still on call for like the Sunday, which I wasn't getting paid for, but that's besides the point. But so it was really hard for me to kind of like, well, how can I do both at the same time?
Hmm.
And then it just like, it started to like just brew within inside me and like really just like, I don't want to say frustrate me, but it was like one of those things where it's like, this is really what I want to do. And this is really what I feel like I'm meant to do. So anyways, we booked this trip. We booked this trip to Egypt, my wife and I. And this was like about 3 months. And then my company basically said like, well, no, you can't go. And I was just like, well, I booked it and I have the, like, you can just not pay me for that time. And they said, no, you can't go. We need you here. So then it came to that realization where I was like, well, nothing's going to change unless I just change it
Hmm.
myself. And so after like a real long kind of like thought about it, I was like, I may as well try.
Hmm.
And so I left my job. I had no idea what I was going to do besides help people get healthy and fit. I had no, like, I had clients from like before, since 2014 when I started working with people, just like, doing online training and stuff like that, giving them workout plans and stuff. But I was just so, I was listening to a podcast actually, and his name's Brian Mark, and he does like online coaching, but he like pumps people up about it. And, he's just like, anybody can do this thing, whatever. Like I have a kind of like a step-by-step, like, program to help people do this online and convert from their 9 to 5 to this. And I was just like listening to his stuff, and I probably listened to like, I don't know, man, like it's got to be like 100 hours worth of his content. No joke. Every single morning on the drive to work, because it was just like, I was just playing it. And then I just convinced myself that I was like, yeah, I can do this. And at
Hmm.
the exact same time, this guy, he reached out to me on Instagram actually, and he's like, Mike, I see your profile, what you're doing. He's like, we actually help people, basically develop the kind of back end to show people how to reach out and develop a business when it comes to online coaching, but through LinkedIn specifically. And then I was just like, wow, well, if I can reach out to these CEOs and the people that I wanted to through LinkedIn, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'll do this 100%. So I paid the guy, I quit my job, and I had no idea what was going to come from it. And then it was just like, we were just doing the outreach. And then my first person was like, yeah, I'm actually interested in doing that. So I got on the phone with him, kind of walked through like what we were going to do. Well, first we always do like that discovery call to understand the client first, because it's not like every, there's no one size fits all solution for anybody, right? Everybody is an individual and everything functions differently. Everybody has their own ailments, their own kind of goals and stuff like that. So we really like dove into his first goals, and it was like a perfect fit for what I really understood how to do. Like he was struggling with sleep, struggling with energy, just wanted to lose like 25 pounds, just feel like himself again, right? So it's like this was someone that I'm 100% confident that I can work with. So I told him that, and I was like, look, it's only going to take 4 months to do this. And so he was just like, sure, let's do it. I'm in. So that was my first person. I had no infrastructure set up for like an online coaching training or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I just went online and I was just like, well, I'll figure it out. Like I would rather get someone started rather than invest all of this time in developing the infrastructure for nobody that's going to use it. So we got the first person started. Instantly, I just went to work that night building the whole like online training platform that we had. Like no joke, like it was pretty funny, and because I had the need for it now, so I
Yeah.
developed that training platform, which we just plug and played into like an online, an online coaching, like a plug and play platform, if that makes sense. We just bought a plug and play platform which we could bring people into at the very start just to get them going. It was a really good program though. Like everything about it, like I really aligned to, and it made a lot of sense to bring people into this at the start. So I did that right away. I coached him, and then once I started coaching him, that level of like conviction that I can do it, you know, it kept rising and rising as more of these individuals started to respond to my messages and started to be like, hey, like this is actually something that I'm interested in, right? So then it just continued to compound and build the vision that I have of creating like health and wellness for the world, and really changing kind of the world's paradigm on like how, you know, just a little bit of effort when it comes to the health side, and most of it is nutrition, right? So that's the great thing about what we do, is that fundamentally, if 80% of the results are going to come from the nutrition side of things, then fundamentally there's actually not a lot of time that's required to invest to get an a very high level of results, if that makes sense, right?
It makes a
Right,
lot of
because
sense.
most people think that they have to go to the gym and spend hours there every single day, but like the reality is that's only 20% of the game, right? So that's again why I went into the online space, is because a lot of people were hiring personal trainers. It's like, well, you're spending a fortune on these personal trainers and you're only getting 20% of the game. And that's why you see people work with these trainers for 2, 3, 4 years, and they pretty much look the exact same, quite honestly, right? So it's like when it comes to like the fundamentals of like how can we get results faster and with less effort, I focus on the 80% that matters. And I think that that's why like a lot of people can come into this program and be super successful, is because they don't actually have to spend hours in the gym. And most of the people that we get on our training programs, we recommend going 3 days a week, 25 to 30 minutes each time. That's it.
Oh,
Anybody
really?
can do
Wow.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
anybody can do that.
that's fantastic. That's 3 hours. What is it? An hour and a half a
Hour and
week.
a half a week for actual fitness
You
commitments.
can find time. You can find time for that. I'm
And
going an hour every day.
yeah, and a lot of these guys too, like the people that I work with, they either have a home gym facility, right? Maybe they live at a in an apartment where they have a full gym that is within their amenities. And then for people that don't have those things, we even have like band packages that we set people up with. They just hook up to the door frame in your house, and you can do a workout from your house very, very efficiently and effectively without having to like drive to a gym back and forth. And that cuts down probably like 20 minutes or 30 minutes
Yeah,
just the
yeah,
drive
yeah.
time alone, right? So now when we zone into stuff like that, it's like we can really do this in a very reasonable time frame, and it doesn't have to be every day. If you wanted to split it up into every day, maybe we could do every day 15 minutes a day, right? It doesn't have to be a lot of work when it comes to the fitness side. Of course, it's going to be a catalyst to the results and building muscle and things, which are fundamentally required to create long-term sustainability. But like if it's just a simple weight loss kind of program, we can pretty much do everything just with the nutritional side of things.
I think that there's a lot of like you said, there's a lot of benefit in focusing on the area that I think most people find the most complicated, for myself included. It's not the gym. It's like, yeah, lift weights. Yes, there's form and all of that stuff, but I get the principles, the compound lifts. It takes 10 minutes to understand. I mean, you can go deeper down that rabbit hole. I get it, but I think what really is confusing for a lot of people is, yeah, counting calories, understanding what's good for you, what's not, what you can have, what you can't have, when you can treat yourself, what kind of structure you can bring in, and that's what you can come in and provide alongside accountability. I've seen a lot of people benefit from those sides more than the actual just, hey, okay, lift weights, do this. It's
Yeah.
actually bringing them a layer of knowledge that they didn't have. That is, like you said, the most effective layer of knowledge they need to have right here, right now. Your story, in terms of how you got started, reminds me, you talked about coaches. Tony Robbins, when he says, to take the island, you have to burn the boats. And it sounds like you went down that route, which is like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to have to make a tough decision here, but if I want change, I'm going to have to create that change myself. And it means that I'm going to have to say no or sacrifice things that I've got currently going. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not always going to be easy. But I think that also provides you with a bit of empathy with the people you're speaking to, because a lot of those people may not also feel like this is something that they're comfortable with, but you're helping them on that change, on that journey, taking that first step and helping
Yeah.
them get to the position where they can be healthier, happier, and full of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to touch on one more thing, like what you said, it's like the confusion is a lot of the thing around like nutrition specifically and what to eat when they're out. And it's like that's another way that we produce a lot of results and success, is because back to this personal trainer kind of example. Well, the personal trainer trains you for 45 minutes to an hour, right? Even if you're going every day, well, you still have 23 other hours in the day to really screw this up, right? And I'll tell you right now that those personal trainers, they could care so much about your health and fitness, but because their schedule is in person and they're on these people in person, they don't have the ability to help you out those 23 other hours of the day where it really makes the difference. So what we can do is we can go into a person's day-to-day life at any time that they need, assistance. Say they are going out for lunch, they're not sure what to eat because they're with a client, right? They can send us a menu and we'll give them options to kind of eat from that menu. And then from doing that, they actually develop the understanding of like, okay, well, I still can eat out with my clients and I can still make good choices. And next time that I go out, these are like a couple of good options that Mike has kind of outlined or Body Blueprint has outlined for me. And it's like I can still build on those fundamentals over time. So this really develops the skills to be successful for the rest of your life rather than just, going into the gym and having someone tell you what to do in the gym, but neglecting kind of like the day-to-day life that actually is like human and what makes us human, right? So it's like that's kind of where we overcome most of the obstacles and create and drive results is through that kind of like thought process and developing fundamentals along the way. And we help people out as much as they need. And it's great because the more we help people out, the more questions they ask, the more obstacles they go through that they overcome. Well, then the better they're going to be for the rest of their life because they're developing that understanding at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that point you made because it's that 1 hour at the gym, but it's the 23 other hours that you're not at the gym, and the decision fatigue I feel that comes from, what am I eating? Like anytime I'm not really a big, diets, like looking at all the stuff, macros and calories. I'm slim. I'm sure I need to still look at it, but one thing that has helped me is just having I'm just on a really basic diet, but it eliminates fatigue. And it's the same when I used to just wear the same black t-shirt every day, and it frees up your mind to make or to be a bit more resilient to other things that might pull at your discipline strings and be like,
Yeah.
okay. But if you've got someone that you can just ping or someone that's providing a bit of assistance to when it comes to making those decisions, I think it just makes it so much easier to stick to the script, isn't it? Because you're not weighed down by it. Oh no, wait, I've just had a stressful meeting. I've now got to decide what's the right thing to eat right now, and they can just ping you and be like, "Yo, Mike, I'm the team up Body Blueprint. What do I do here?" And
Yeah.
you put together the guardrails that keep them focused.
When people try to do it themselves, there's definitely like a sense of overwhelm
Yeah.
because they're trying to figure out this on the fly. But and at the same time, they don't really know if it's going to work or not, right?
Yeah.
So what I see a lot of people do is they do really good for like 3-4 weeks, but
Hmm.
by themselves. But it's like a lot of effort for them to do that, and by continuing to do that and then maybe not seeing the results translate on the scale because they don't understand actually like the fundamentals of weight loss and like what you should actually be monitoring and how you should actually be assessing the results that are coming. I think that all of a sudden they're putting in all of this work, it already feels like overwhelmed, and then it's not translating to results on the scale. So then they just like end up giving up because it's just frustrating. It's like, well, I'm spending all of this time on it and it's not even working. So this is like way too much of a headache for me to continue to do. And then that's why people fall off. So like our way of doing it is like, look, we have a specific roadmap to success. Just if you want it something super easy, hey, we can do a plug and play meal plan where it's so simple to prep. You can prep everything in like 2 to 5 minutes. All right, plug and play on this. You don't have to worry about anything. Give it to your wife to prep. Do
Mm.
whatever. Send it out for like a meal prep service if you want to even expedite the time. You can do that. And then the next step is like, okay, well, maybe someone, now they have this meal plan, but they forget their lunch one day, or they have to go out for lunch with a client. It's like, then we have the service to help take care of overcoming those kind of like situations, right? Which continue to build out fundamentals without having to stress about it, right? Because they start to understand and they don't have to guess and worry about like, oh, is this even right? Am I going to even get results? Because we have the plan outlined for them and we're going to guide them the right way. And then the last step is like, once we can completely like get the results showing, they're excited about it, they understand some of the fundamentals, then it's like if they wanted to go out and kind of like just do this system themselves, we teach them how to really understand the calories, the macronutrients, the micronutrients, and they can track them within our app as well, and we can give them feedback as they go. We're not expecting anything to be perfect right when you get started because it's a learning experience too. But it's like it's very simple to track your calories within our app, and then our team gives feedback on each one of those things. It's like, hey, you did this here, it's great, but we could even make it better by doing this, and this is how I would suggest it. Or it's kind of like a game, and people get excited about like tracking those macros after a certain amount of time because they also have the ability to go like freely kind of go to whatever they want to do and know that it aligns to what is going to progress them to their goals at the end of the day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Mike. I know we're coming up to the end of the hour, and I'm sure you're a busy man, but it's been a pleasure to actually just get into the background of kind of where you've been able to gain the experience and the skills that has brought Body Blueprint to fruition. But also, more importantly, what I feel like I've discovered is just understanding what makes you guys unique in terms of you. And it's coming from your background, your dad who's a legend, and just those experiences that have made up, I feel, what makes you and Body Blueprint unique is just that different take and that different perspective on how things combine and stack up next to each other. And not just, it's like I see from listening to you, and you listen, you think about Mr. Canada and you think just brawn, but you've got a lot of brains. Like, you've done engineering, you're good at maths, you're good at all this stuff that, they sometimes they're not correlated to a lot of people on the outside. And I think you take the approach of Body Blueprint, which is you've injected a lot of brains and a lot of intelligence into the program outside of it just being a brawn, yeah, we'll look good, we'll feel good. But it's actually, there's a lot of thought that's gone into it. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I appreciate you. And one more thing to touch on there. First of all, thank you for saying those things. That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate it. But I think that the real thing that differentiates what we're doing is that when a personal trainer steps into talking to people that are working their 9 to 5 jobs, that are, have been focused on being a CEO, being a high level kind of individual when it comes to corporate status, they don't truly understand the struggles and the things that they're going through, right? So because they've only known one thing, and it was like, hey, I'm a personal trainer, I focus on my health and fitness, and that's it. And they don't really have anybody outside of their clients that they work with, and when they go home, they know how to eat from the nutrition side of things, they know how to do all of those things. But like for us, me being an engineer, I've experienced that life. I understand like the struggles and how to kind of like work around those things because I've been in the trenches, like doing that same kind of 9 to 5, that heavy stress working 16 hours a day, and still made the ability to take my health and fitness seriously by optimizing different things, right? So it's like, it's the same way, like, they say like a monkey could build a bridge, right? You just build a bridge, it collapses, you just build it a little bit stronger, it collapses, you build it a little bit stronger, right? And these personal trainers, if they don't understand like the time requirements that these people have and how like scarce time is, well, then they don't understand how to really like optimize it into something that fits with these people's schedules, right? If that makes sense. Yeah, maybe like they're doing their routine where maybe they are spending an hour and a half in the gym. Maybe they are spending hours meal prepping every day because they have that time. But a lot of people don't have that time, right? And I never had that time as an engineer as well, doing all of these things at the same time. So I've taken that knowledge of being like a real world experience for myself. And people always say it's like the best people to help people are the people that have experienced it themselves. And I think that that's where we can take the fundamentals of like what we've learned with working kind of in this environment, the same way that these individuals that we're helping work in that environment, and just like creating a system that works for them because we understand like all of the time constraints, we understand the pressure, we understand like all of the things that they have to worry about, and we just can fit it into their schedule without making it seem overwhelming to them and still driving the results at the end of the day.
Yeah, it makes a lot of, and I think that's one of the things that we didn't touch on. So good point you brought that up, Mike, which is I think the focus that you have on the CEOs and understanding their lifestyle, and having worked with so many by now, is just allows you to be able to spot those patterns that will help them out in actually getting the outcome that they want. Because all too often we just kind of, we're busy, we're flying around, da, 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 and then we drop the ball. And if you don't have that experience of handling someone that is a high achiever, a lot of pressure on their shoulders, it may be hard to relate the process to them from their perspective and their perception, because that's what's really important, is that they grasp it. And that's what it sounds like you do, is not just a cookie cutter approach, but you're making it bespoke to each individual, and that comes back full circle to your discovery process and making sure that you can genuinely help and having that guarantee that you will.
Yeah,
So
it
thank you,
has to
Mike.
be. It has to be that way, right? It has to be, because anybody can slap a diet on someone and say, "Hey, just follow this." But
Mm,
ultimately, if it's something that provides a whole bunch of resistance in actually following that diet, well, then long term they're going to fall off, right? And we don't even like to call our plans like a diet. We call them plans because plans are something that people can stick to no matter where they go, no matter what they're doing, right? And if you can stick to it no matter where you're going and you don't feel hungry, tired, you sleep better, you're more energetic, it's like, why would you ever fall off of this, right?
mm.
So that creates sustainability, and that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, I love the passion and the enthusiasm, Mike.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm looking forward to definitely having another call, because we need to dive into the actual fundamentals. This is the story, but I know that a lot of people are going to want to hear kind of, okay, how do I apply this? And I'm sure
100%.
we have a few ideas there. But thank you for your time, Mike. I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much. Appreciate you
Okay.
having me here.